Welcome to Tales from the Trenches Tuesdays. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to have Tricia Johnson on with us. Tricia is the Director of Communications and Development at the Ottawa Food Bank. She's passionate about building genuine relationships with people. She has a deep history fundraising for the arts in Ottawa and Toronto, where she's worked with Ottawa's Chamberfest, Canadian Stage, and the Royal Conservatory of Music. Tricia chairs the Ottawa Food Bank's IDEA Committee, a cross-functional team that practices inclusion, continuous learning, and actions focused on promoting food security for all. So welcome, Tricia.
Thank you.
We were just catching up. It's actually been kind of a crazy couple of years. And one of the first things I like to talk to my guests about is what are they doing in their spare time? You know, my wife and I are always fighting, not so much during football season because there's great stuff to watch on TV. But when it's not football season, what are some good tips for something that I might enjoy watching?
Ooh, okay. So I had a lot of fun making this list, and I've looked at it in terms of who I actually watch TV with. So if it's just me and my son, our favorite show to watch together is Parks and Recreation. That was a big one. And actually, we also watch Blackish together, which has been a really great show, not just because it's funny and it's a slice of life, but especially being, a mixed race youth who's growing up. It's a really great way to introduce topics that are going to be particularly relevant to him as he's growing up, because he's only 10 years old right now.
Wow.
With my daughter, I love to watch a series called Love, Victor and another one called Heartstopper. And then with my husband, together we have really enjoyed watching Ted Lasso and Schitt's Creek.
Wow. So that's quite the variety. Yes. Yeah, some of them are brand new to me, so we'll definitely have to check those out because, you have 8,000 channels and there's nothing to ever watch on TV. It's the same thing on 1,000 different channels, right?
That's it.
So
that's it.
Yeah. But, anyways. One of the questions I also start talking to fundraisers about is tell me about the best canvas you were on.
So it's funny. I don't have one best canvas, but I can think of many instances where I know how those asks that were really important, that went really well, made me feel. I really felt like I was in flow. During the conversation. It was a genuine connection. I had prepared. Often I rehearse before I go in for an ask. It's something that I take quite seriously. And doing a bit of a rehearsal, whether it's with a trusted colleague or just on my own, sometimes either in the mirror or even on my way to a visit, helps me work out the kinks of what it is that I want to say. I really think about, if I only have 3 things that I want to communicate, I really try and identify what those are. Work backwards and think about what do I want to talk about. And when those asks go really well, I just kind of let it go. And we end up having a conversation similar to what we're doing right now. How are you? What's going on? The purpose about why we're here, the impact that we want to make, and just making sure that I take time to listen to how the messages I'm sharing are being received, and also just getting a sense of what's really motivating them and what's landing well with them and also what isn't.
Yeah. And, it's so interesting. People get all caught up in the ask. And really, if you have a visit that's an hour long, the ask component is about 5 minutes, right? It's such a small proportion of all the rest of it. And folks kind of get hung up on that actual ask part, but it's really more of an inquiry visit and finding out what their buttons are, what resonates with them, what doesn't resonate with them.
Yeah.
So, that's a kind of an easier lob, is it's kind of what your favorite canvas is. We've all had these canvases that we go on and then afterwards we're like, oh my God, that was just a gong show. So tell me about your worst canvas that you've had.
My worst canvas was kind of weird in a way because I had prepared for it. I'd had several conversations with the donor before, and it was actually, and I knew enough that it was mainly going to be a conversation. And I made sure to make it very donor centric, or it was about them. But what made it weird, I found, was, when I got to the point where I'm okay, here's what we want to talk about. This is what we need and why. And again, there was no number asked towards it. I do feel as though it just didn't land very well with the donor. And it did surprise me, given that I had been planting some seeds, I had been listening, and I really made sure to talk about, where we wanted to go and get a sense of, if this was an opportunity that would have resonated with the donor. And clearly it didn't. I was able to ask, and there was definitely, I'll think about it. But I could feel, again, it was like the opposite of flow. It felt very crunchy and uncomfortable. Having said that, afterwards I did make sure to keep the relationship open. But I definitely learned that was a donor where that was not the opportunity that I presented to him was not something that he was going to pursue, and that's okay.
Right. Yeah, and you know what? I think that's always kind of a learning exercise, right? Is finding out there's so many amazing opportunities in Canada. We have 87,000 charities,
right?
So that doesn't even count the nonprofits. There's so many opportunities for people to make an impact and make an investment in, that they can be fairly targeted with what they want, and they can say, this works for me, and this one doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
And I think we just have to realize that as fundraisers, that it's not a failure upon us. If, someone's passion is somewhere else, then, great, good on them. Let them go and pursue that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So we've kind of seen fundraising take kind of a bit of a leap over the last couple of years with COVID. We've kind of seen on one side, the event side, kind of go by the wayside, because no one really wanted to be in a room with 1,000 other people eating a rubber chicken. But we've also seen much more of a strategy to kind of connect with donors. So can you talk to me a little bit how that's kind of happened in your work?
Mm-hmm. I'd say, definitely, events are definitely coming back. People are excited to meet each other again, to have connections in person. They're having that in-person energy. You can't beat it. But one of the things that we were actually doing even before COVID was having visits or events. Actually, these aren't fundraising events that I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is almost more of a cultivation event that were a little bit more targeted and have led to donation dollars, maybe not on the spot, but definitely down the road. Having a very sort of small experience that allowed you to personally connect with the donors. They could personally ask questions, because the dynamic really changes depending on how many people are in the room. Right. So that's definitely something that I took from my Chamberfest days, the idea that, just small ensembles. Obviously, as a fundraiser for the Ottawa Food Bank, we're not talking about performance, but being able to have small groups where we can actually talk about things like our strategic plan and what our vision is for the future, and what are some of the projects that are really going to help us move the needle on food insecurity. Being able to have events that are a little bit smaller in scope allows us to have genuine conversations and slowly build relationships that last.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, to realize that you want to have those intimate relationships. You can't necessarily have them in a room of 500 people.
No,
but if you have a smaller group, you can certainly afford that time to foster some real relationships. And I think that that's kind of a neat thing going forward, is those are going to be the deeper relationships, as opposed to kind of throwing out a huge net and hoping that something catches in there.
That's it.
Well, Tricia, this has been absolutely amazing. If folks wanted to get hold of you, how would they go about doing that?
Well, as you know, I work at the Ottawa Food Bank, so you can certainly reach me by email, tricia@ottawafoodbank.ca.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you.
Hi, folks. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button right here.